We'll start with the short Vajradhara prayer, which is at the first tab in the Red Book, marked Dorje Chang. Dorje Chang Chan Te Lo Narodang Marpa Mila Chuje Gampo Pa Du Sum She Ja Kun Chen Karma Pa Je Ji Chung Je Ju Pa Zin Nam Dang Dri Tak Sal Sum Pal Den Dru Pa So Ablam Chak Ja Che La Nya Nye Pe Nya Me Droga Po Ka Jula Solwa Dep So Ka Jula Manam Ju Pa Zin O Na Tar Jin Jilo Shen Lot Gom Ji Pa Song Pa Shin Se Nor Kun La Chak Shen Me Pa Dang Se Di Du Tak Shu Pe Gom Chen La Nye Kur Shen Pa Me Pa Jin Ji Lo Mugu Gom Ji Go Wo Song Pa Shin Nak Ter Go Che Pe Lama La Jundu So Wa De Pe Gom Chen La Chemin Mugu Ke Wa Jin Ji Lo Yang Me Gom Ji Nu Zi Song Pa Shin Tok Pe No Wo So Ma De Ma Che De Ka Jo Pe Gom Chen La Gom Ja Lo Dang Dra Wa Jin Ji Lo Nam Tok No Wo Chu Ku Song Pa Shin Chiang Ma Yin Chir Yang Char Wala Maga Krol Pa Char Wei Gom Chen La Korde Yer Me Hok Par Jin Jilo Kewa Kun Tu Yang Dak Lama Dang Dral Me Chu Ki Pa La Long Tu Jing Sadang Lam Ju Yun Ten Ra Zok Ne Dorje Chang Yi Go Pang Yu To Shok Je Chang Yi Go Pang Yu To Shok. And now we'll go to the tab in the book marked Mandala, the 7-branch prayer, Mandala offering. Chak Sal Wadang Chu Ching Shak Padang Jesu Irang Ku Sing So Wa Ye Ge Wa Chung Se Dak Yi Chi Sak Pa Tam Che Dak Yi Jang Shub Chir Nu Sa Shi Bo Chu Duk Sing Mi Tok Tam Ri Rab Yi De Gen Pa Di San Ye Sing Du Mik Te Pu Wa Ye Dro Kun Nam Dak Sing La Chu Pa Shong. Samchen tam ki tam padang lo yi che drab ji ta war che chung tun mong tek pa ye cho ki kor lo kor du so.
How's your mind today? Actually, that's a kind of an interesting question, is it? How's your mind? Do you know the answer? What's your mind like? We talked a lot about the mind yesterday, and the mind, according to Milarepa's songs that we were looking at, is the inseparability of emptiness and luminosity, emptiness and appearance, emptiness and bliss, emptiness and wisdom, emptiness and compassion. All these qualities within that mind, and yet that mind is emptiness. That's your mind. That's his mind. That's our mind. That's the Buddha's mind. So the question of how is your mind all of a sudden seems irrelevant because the mind is beyond how and what. You know what I mean? Because the nature of that mind is emptiness. So, to understand the mind a little more, maybe we can look at more of Milarepa's songs, what makes him so happy. And today we'll start looking at page 14. Chapter 10, Meeting Rechungpa. So the story goes, Rechungpa, who's Milarepa's one of the two main disciples of Milarepa. The other main one is, as you know, Gambova. He's like the sun, and Rechungpa is like the moon. So the sun and moon disciples. Now Rechungpa went to the Jezun to get permission to go to India, to which he consented and sang a song on the Dharma of travel. With the Jezun remaining within his retreat cave, Rechungpa sealed him inside with mud. So traditionally, when you're in a sealed retreat, you don't have a door. It's usually a cave, but even the entrance to the cave is sealed with mud or whatever material. So, but of course, you have to kind of breathe. So there's usually a tiny little opening to allow for, some light and food to be brought in if there is, someone who brings in food periodically. I don't know what it was like, in Milarepa's situation. But anyway, his disciple Rechungpa is the one who sealed his cave. Then following the acharya means it's like a title of a scholar, someone who has completed studies nowadays it's called Buddhist college, Shidra. But in the old days, I don't know what kind of, Buddhist study training that they went through, but there's a certain degree that's been achieved, so it's called acharya. It's an academic title. He went to India, where he met the Guru Varachandra. The Guru gave Rinpoche complete instructions on the winged Garuda of fierce Vajrapani, on which he meditated. Through that, he was cured of his illness. Rinpoche then returned to Tibet. From the town of Gidung onward, he went along asking of his Guru's whereabouts, because he thought his Guru must have completed the retreat for that period of time, and maybe he went somewhere. So he was asking where Milarepa might be. He heard from someone who said that previously they had heard of a yogi there named Mila, but had not heard anything about him recently. Has my Guru died, he thought. With heavy heart, he went to Silk Cave to see. The mud seal that he had put on the cave was undisturbed as before. So it's unknown how long he was gone all this time. But anyway, apparently Milarepa had not left that cave. Then he thought, has he died while still in the cave? He tore down the mud seal and went inside. There, the Jezun was sitting perfectly straight, practicing. Seeing this, Rinpoche was overjoyed and asked after Milarepa's health. In response, the Jezun sang this song of realization. Again, as we can expect, he's going to tell him how happy he was all this time. Okay, so he begins with, I bow at the feet of Marba, so kind, it's actually, I've always had some little reservation about the translation of the Tibetan word jin. Jin is usually translated as kind or kindness, but it's a lot more than just kindness. When you think of kindness, we think someone is just, very nice to you. But the word jin actually means someone who has given you a lot. Someone who has given you almost like what you don't deserve, They have given you something very precious, something you really appreciate. And so that's why you're very grateful to the person. So that's why we say the Guru is Gajin Chimbo, this Guru has a lot of jin, or kindness, but that kindness needs to be understood as someone who has given you something really, really precious, not necessarily in terms of material things, but something that you really, really appreciate. It's that kind of kindness that's meant here. Then he goes on, having cut ties with my family, I feel good. So, he left his family, as you probably know from his life story, to study with a teacher and to practice. So finally he was able to meet Marba, who, put him through a lot of austerity. But he had no grudge at all and did everything that his teacher told him to do, and finally was able to receive instructions from Marba and put them to practice and finally attain realization. So the starting point was cutting his ties with his family and went to seek, a good teacher. Relinquishing clinging to my homeland, I feel good. So he went away. But he felt, now that he looks back, he feels really good that he's done that. With no care over local matters, I feel good. So, his homeland, he didn't miss it. Maybe he did a little bit, but, he didn't have to care about it. So he feels very good. And now a lot of people, worry about the USA and all that. If we do what Milarepa did, we wouldn't have to worry. Not corrupted by Sangha donations, I feel good. Sometimes when a person is doing good practice and people hear about it, they would come with all sorts of offerings, money or food or clothing or whatever. And the person becomes gradually corrupted, they're hoping for more and more and more, and the practice just goes down the drain. But he's not like that. He said, I'm not corrupted by donations because I don't need anything. I don't want anything. And I feel very good because of it. Not becoming a householder, I feel good. He has never gotten married, and so he's not a householder. And he's a lay person, of course, but his practice and his life example is, much more superior than someone who may be a monastic. There's just, in terms of practice and his life example, there's just no pair, no comparison, I should say. So he feels very good that he's all alone, he's single, and there's no one to bother him. Not needing this or that, I feel good. If we have wants and needs, there's always a sense of being, feeling unfulfilled. There's something I still need, something, just a little something I still want. But he says, I don't need anything and I don't want anything, and because of that, I feel very good. These are the first part of this song are all things that are more mundane, all these mundane things he says, I don't need and I don't want, so I feel good. But the next part, the last part of the song, goes into his realization, his state of mind, which gives him, complete satisfaction. And then, let's see. Wealthy with the noble riches, I feel good. We talked about the noble riches yesterday, so he has a lot of it, he says. Without the suffering of keeping provisions, I feel good. The suffering of needing to keep provisions is the first step. And once you have them, and then you have to keep having them, and that's another, that's the second stage of suffering. And then the third would be, fear of losing them. So, one goes these into the other, and so we're always in a state of some sort of fear, some sort of suffering. And he has none of those. So he says, I feel good. With no worry of them getting lost, I feel good. Yeah, because he has nothing, so there's no worry of, his provisions getting lost. With no fear of them running out, I feel good. Yep. So, we aspire, it sounds all very good, but if we look at our realistic situation, we can't do without provisions, we can't do without keeping them, we can't do without fearing that one day this is going to decrease, or even run out, the things that we own and we need. So we are always in a state of some sort of uneasiness, isn't it? And because of that, in our meditation, we're constantly distracted because we're thinking of these and that, things that concern us. So meditation can never go well, or is very difficult for those reasons. So if you give up everything, then you have no worries. You don't have to be concerned about these needs and wants and fears. And meditation will definitely go much better. But say as we may, nobody is willing to do that. Very few people. With resolve about mind, I feel good. So now he's turning from material things that he doesn't want and doesn't need, that makes him happy and good, to what's in his mind that makes him feel good. So resolved about the mind. He already know what the mind is, So I know what the mind is all about. So I feel very good. Not needing to please benefactors, I feel good. Because as we said, he does not need benefactors for his needs. with no weariness or irritation, I feel good. Because his mental state is always stable, always open, always blissful. So there's no conflicting emotions. Without hypocritical conduct, I feel good. He doesn't need to be hypocritical. He does not need to please anyone, to gain something. Whatever I do is Dharma, and that feels good, certainly. Even at our level, I think, if everything we do is for the Dharma, is for the benefit of beings, is motivated by bodhicitta, I think we will be much happier. The reason we're not so happy is because we are doing things for ourselves. We are doing things for worldly gains. And those gains are most for ourselves and for our immediate loved ones. And so we're always not, we're happy, but we're not so happy. But if we can do things, completely for the Dharma, completely for, with the motivation, even if you don't really directly do anything good for others, but you do everything with the intention of benefiting and bringing happiness to others, both temporarily and ultimately, which is Buddhahood, then you'll feel much better. No weariness of wishing to roam around feels good. So he's already in his retreat cave, and he may, move from one place to another, but he doesn't need to roam around. Without fear of being killed, I feel good, because there's no one around. And even even if there are robbers, and it has happened, robbers would come to his cave, but they couldn't kill him because he had nothing, and they were usually subdued by him, by his songs. Without fear of burglary, I feel good. Remember, there's a story of Milarepa staying in the cave, and some thieves came in and looking around, and they were shocked, like, how come you have nothing, not even food, right? He said, yeah, take what you want. If you can find anything, I can't even find anything myself. So, okay, so yeah, he does not fear burglary. Having conducive conditions for virtuous activity feels good. So the conducive conditions here do not mean anything external, but everything, all the conducive conditions are already complete in his mind, so it feels very good. Abandoning negative actions, I feel good. If for someone who has realized the nature of the mind, it is impossible to do any negative actions, because the mind, the so-called mind, our volition, our perception, our concepts, all those have mixed with the nature of the mind, which is completely good, which is excellent, which is good, excellent, marvelous, which is, none other than the luminous wisdom and compassion. So everything that's done out of that mind then is good. It may appear to be good to other people, such as, like I said yesterday, tale about killing fish, fishing, or whatever, but, that is under the disguise of some sort of negative action, but that the intention and that the action itself is good, which is not known to the perceiver, of those particular actions. A lot of times those actions are hidden under some sort of disguise, and you can't tell what the enlightened person is about, what they are up to, With my efforts in merit, I feel good. So everything he does, is meritorious. For that, he feels very good. With no anger or malevolence, I feel good. Again, with someone who's realized mind's nature, there cannot be any anger or any malevolence. Because anger arises from ignorance, from the ignorance that is unaware of this mind, this beautiful, mind's nature. Once you have recognized and realized it, anger cannot arise. I mean, there may be a display of anger for a purpose, for a good purpose, but the anger is not real anger. Having abandoned pride and jealousy, I feel good. Again, anger, pride, jealousy, all these cannot occur. Seeing the faults of the 8 concerns, I feel good. The 8 concerns, or sometimes translated as 8 worldly things, worldly dharma. So the 8 are 4 sets of 4 pairs, actually. They are gain and loss, praise and slander, pleasure and pain, happiness and pain. So these are the things that we're all concerned about. And Milarepa here says, I have seen the faults of these, because where there's gain, there's bound to be loss. Where there's praise, there is bound to be also slander, and so on. So that you're always, revolving around these things that you're concerned about, and you're always in a state of uneasiness. Resting in equality, I feel good. The equality here means the equality of what's good and bad, the equality of what's high and low, cold and hot, and all those things. Opposites. All opposite things are in his experience equal. With mind looking at mine, I feel good. This is, I think he's describing this just to provide instruction. He's already beyond the stage of practice where one's mind is looking at his own mind. He's already seen what his mind is like, so he doesn't need to look at his mind anymore. But anyway, just so his student, Red Chompa in this case, knows, what is to be practiced. He's saying, mind looking at mind, and the mind looking at mind itself is a practice. One of the stage, we can say the stages of Mahamudra practice. This is the main practice, the mind looking at the mind. With no hope or fear, I feel good. So hope and fear, that's something that everyone has, and he has transcended that. In the expanse of luminosity, free of fixation, I feel good. So that, again, he says, describing what the mind is like. It is an expanse of luminosity in which there's no fixation. In that expanse, it is actually impossible to have any fixation, because fixation can only occur when there's someone who can fixate, there's someone that fixates, and there's something that can be fixated. But in that expanse, there's no someone, there's no object, there's no subject, and so there's no object, like I said yesterday. So it is already naturally free of fixation. And that feels very good. Now you might ask, if you say there is no subject and object in the expanse, then why does he say he feels good? There's the I that feels good, doesn't it? What's your answer?
Bliss is inseparable from emptiness.
Yes. But who's feeling that bliss? What? Yes, it's figurative. Yeah, he says, I feel good, but so that you understand that it does feel good, but he's not saying there's I was feeling that, he's not saying there's I was there and I felt this. It doesn't mean that. Yeah, that's correct. It is just an expanse of bliss and luminosity with no one feeling something. There's not an I that's feeling something. But he had to say, I feel good. Otherwise, you don't know what I'm saying. You know what I mean? It's tricky. With the six consciousnesses in their own place, I feel good. So we talked about the six consciousnesses yesterday. So they're in their own place, very, with luminous clarity. So it feels good. With the clarity of the five gates consciousnesses, I feel good. The five gates are the five sense organs in the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and body. They're also very, very clear. With the cutting of minds coming and going, I feel good. So you might say, oh, what's the minds coming and going? So in other words, the minds coming and going is just kind of the thoughts, arising and ceasing, arising and disappearing. That's the minds coming and going. And he's not literally cutting those thoughts. It's just that the thoughts can go and they can come, but there's no fixation on these thoughts. And this is actually an excellent way of dealing with unwanted thoughts. You know what I mean? Unwanted emotions, because you cannot stop emotions from arising. But when emotions arise, emotions themselves are not a problem. The problem is the subsequent fixation on these emotions that is a problem. So, for example, you feel anger arising, and anger itself is not a problem if you don't follow it, if you don't fixate on and follow and then produce negative action or speech as a result. You let it rise, and you watch it and let it just disappear. As soon as that anger is looked at, it has no place to stay. It'll have to just be exposed, and it'll have to disappear if it's looked at in its own nature. But usually we don't do this kind of exercise, this kind of mental mind training exercise, even as practitioners. We act just like an ordinary untrained person usually. When anger arises, we say, "Oh, I'm angry! I'm so angry," and then we say something harmful or unkind, or we do something stupid, like that. So don't let that step two happen. When anger arises, you look at it, and it just quietly disappears. That's the best thing, because anger is what is taught is there's no root to anger. It can come and it can go. It doesn't have to stay. But what happens is people see it arise and immediately plant it, grab the roots as if it had roots, and then just plant it, and then, okay, you grow, and then that's the end of the story. It's just then problems occur. So just with any emotion, desire, jealousy, pride, whatever, you look at it and it just quietly kind of disappears. I think that's a very important practice to do. if we study all these songs and we come to have a better understanding of what the mind really is, and we agree and we're happy that that's my mind. Okay, that's good. Good to know. My mind is luminosity, emptiness, and bliss, and all that. And if it only remains a knowledge, an intellectual understanding, and remains something that you are delighted to know, because okay, that's nice to know, but then you do nothing about it, then it's kind of a shame. But if you can instead, use this information, use this knowledge to form a habit of always looking at your mind, whenever emotions, especially unwelcome emotions, arise, you look at those emotions and understand that the nature of those emotions, that those emotions are nothing other than the mind. And so you look at the nature of those emotions, which is the nature of the mind, you come to understand, at least mentally or intellectually, that nature of those unwelcome, terrible emotions is nothing than bliss, emptiness, and luminosity. And you try to rest your mind in just that. I think if you practice that, every time there's an emotion, and gradually, day by day by day, I think it's going to help you very, very much, a lot. I hope that's what you bring home as homework from this weekend's teaching. Not something that you just kind of put aside as something you can show as what you understand, but something that you actually keep as a treasure in your mind and use it all the time, Okay. So then he says, I have so many ways of feeling good, and that's so true. everything makes him feel good. And that's why, we can be somewhat like him too. If we use all our lives' experiences and conditions, whether good or bad, to be the condition upon which we can look at the nature of the mind, then everything will become good. This is a yogi's happy song. I do not aspire for any other happiness. Wow. So happy to hear that, right? I don't need any other kind of happiness. In death, I feel good, for I have done no negative deeds. As he said, I don't have any negative deeds. Not possible for me to do anything bad. So when I die, I'll feel good, knowing that I've done nothing wrong. Of course, you would argue, well, you killed 36 people. But the thing is, he's purified all that karma, so. And he's done nothing wrong after that. In life, I feel good, for virtuous activity flourishes. Because I've done, all virtuous activities in my life. Benefactors give me food and clothes. This is the kindness of the three jewels and the Guru. So everything that I obtain from my benefactors, food, clothing, shelter, whatever, it's all because of the kindness of my Guru, Marba, and the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. And this is how we should think also. If we have a nice house, our job is good, we're earning decent income, or whatever income we have, that can support our livelihood, and we have, in general, just a comfortable life, we shouldn't think, I deserve it, I earned it, Of course you did, but we should, more than that, think that it is because of the kindness of our gurus and the three jewels. I think it's very important to give thanks, to be grateful. rather than thinking, oh, no one did it, I did it for myself, you know. It may be true that we did it for ourselves, we provided for ourselves, but I think to be thankful anyway, you know, for our ability, our you know, fortunate or circumstances, to give thanks to whoever may have provided those fortunate circumstances is important. To practice for the sake of yogic bliss feels good. Rechomba, are you well? Did you get what you went for? So, yeah, actually, you know, Milarepa is extremely loving to his students, all his students. So at the end, he says, well, you asked me how I was. I told you, now I'm very good. I feel very good. Now, how are you? You know, and he cares very much. Even when Milarepa was about to die, Rechomba was away, and he really, really wished to wait for Rechomba to return before he passed away. And so, you know, there's a very, very strong bond between Milarepa and his students, you know, especially his close disciples. And so that's why a lot of times he would call his disciples my son, you know, or my daughter, because he really regards them as his children. And that's the way all great beings are, you know. We are, if we have a teacher, we are really the children of our teachers. And they really, really care about us, whether they're alive or not. They continue to care for us, even if they have passed. And there's no doubt about it. In their enlightened mind, you know, that enlightened mind of the teacher, there is no difference between their being alive in the world or their not being alive in the world. That enlightenment has the ability to continue to care for all of their students. So finally it says, when Milarepa had sung this, Rechomba replied, yes, I'm also well, and I got what I went for. Please accept me and continue to give me instructions. Then the children again gave Rechomba instructions and had him meditate in the silk cave. And there he perfected his experience and realization. So this is a very nice story and very nice song. Let's sing it. Back to page 14. Ai jin jie ma bei sham la zhi da nie zhu dang zhe da xie bei de pa yu ge xian ba bang bei de yu de nie ga me bei de Kendung ge Lama ba de kankem da du ma son de la de ga me be de pa be no ge chu be de 소경기 동아미 그대 보도기 도바메베데 세베지바메베데 샘기보다 주베데 연단경어 소미거대 경합순밤에베대 수주마제주베대 지제주소송웨대 조등아도 메베데 수주지바 메베데 고조지바 자웨데 개조기 둔기종웨데 딕벨레남 밤베데 스남길레라 베베데 셰다느셈 자웨데 나갸자도 밤베데 최계 견도 동웨데 대양단념 샤베데 샘기 샘나 데베데 대양제도 메베데 제메살로나데 미도 예시잉나데 슈조뉴맹안도데 조주랑사샥베데 공예남시사웨데 예계존제베데 달라데루 망와다 난조랑기기루인 기바시나가미만 시양대대딕마체 서양대대개조배 세그연다남기조 디니근조라메진 난조대외제도다 레촌대암던조밤 레촌대암던조밤. Questions? Any questions? Oh, no questions. Yeah?
You know, it's easy for me to get like attached to Milarepa's like non-attachment. And I was wondering, in light of that, let alone nurturing like things that we have in our practice, like a shrine, stuff, given Milarepa's example.
So you're attached to Milarepa's example of non-attachment.
Yeah, I true that.
There are some things that we still need to have in order to gather the accumulations of merit. So that's not considered attachment. That's a positive thing to do, as long as you do it without attachment. Like if someone took something from your shrine, for example, and you get very upset, or someone made a mess or something, you get very upset. That shows some attachment. But if you can just say, "Oh yeah, I'll just fix it," and then that's good. You still need a shine. Sorry, we're not there yet. We need the merit. Okay. Yes.
weekend, but Vidya came to me yesterday afternoon about sort of the neutrality of the mind, and just please help remind me where the urge to teach comes from.
The neutrality of the mind and what that urge
The urge
to teach,
Yeah.
from whom?
Is it the impulse to teach is a form of, there's duality in that.
The impulse to teach and neutrality, actually, I think neutrality is a state of mind. It's not so much it's not so much in the realistic world. Everything is, has its own place. Everything is different. So you need to be able to distinguish the state of mind and the actual relative world we're dealing with. So yes, there's the mind in itself, it is a state in which there is no good or bad, right, as we understand. But in the relative world, we need to use that mind that understands that there is no good or bad, which is a wisdom itself. You might argue that is a wisdom, but it is, because it knows everything. That mind, the clarity of the mind, the lucidity of the mind is wisdom. And it knows everything in its own place very clearly, but it does not distinguish. It does not distinguish it's being higher or lower, because everything is just a manifestation of the mind. So they're equal in that, we can say of one taste in that sense. But when dealing with relative reality, then you need to be able to use that wisdom to also tell what is good, what is bad, what is good to do, what is to be abandoned. And so in terms of the urge to teach, I think as long as it is not out of pride, as long as it's out of the intention to benefit, as long as it is with humility and with a lot of strong, compassion and bodhicitta when we teach, then I think it's not against, it's okay. Okay? Anything else? Okay, time is up. Okay, well, we have a little time. Okay, let's look at the next song. Chapter 15, meeting Senben Reba. The Jesu Milarepa, after meditating at Changdago, Chang means the north, Da is a horse, Go is door, the northern horse door. Who knows? I don't know what it is. Anyway, went to meditate at Shiri mountain. Along the road, he stopped at an inn in the northern part of Yeru. At the inn, there was a geshe named Yarutangpa, who had come with a retinue of monks. At that time, while Geshe Yarutangpa was teaching the Dharma, the Jesuit was staying there, acting in the manner of a kusulu. And kusulu means like a wandering yogi, which he was, Milarepa. The Yeshe's monks would all engage in the Dharma activity of reciting and memorizing in the evening. The Geshe, is the title of like a PhD, it's a academic kind of title. because pretty high, highly accomplished scholar. And it's usually, this title is usually only used in the Geluba tradition, and they emphasize the study and debate of the Dharma. So that's what they were doing at the time when Milarepa met them. At night, they would sit straight, meditate in deep samadhi. In the morning, they would again do their Dharma activity of reciting and memorizing. Once at breakfast time, the Jizun went to beg for something to eat. The monk said to him with contempt, "You pretend to be a yogi outwardly, but you can't do any recitation or memorize anything. You can't meditate in samadhi. You can't even recite any mantras. Then to come here to a group of the monastic sangha begging for things that were donated to them, what a shame." So, it's like a lay person begging from a monastic, yeah, they would be upset. I understand, right? Usually the monastics beg for food, right? But here we have the situation where a lay person is begging for food from the monastics. So they was like, what are you doing? So the Jizun replied, "I practice deity meditation and mantra recitation. I study and engage in Dharma activity. I meditate in samadhi. I do them all at once. And this makes me very happy." And he sang this song. So he goes, "The support, which are the three jewels that are ever present, are perfect in the state of uncontrived awareness." So there's the three jewels, usually we understand as the Buddha, Dharma, and the Sangha, and they seem to be external to us. And the Buddha, okay, he lived in the past. The Dharma, okay, that's the teachings, and the Sangha, that's the either the noble Sangha, the Bodhisattvas, or the more worldly Sanghas that are the monastics. The three jewels, we understand them as something external to us, correct? But here, the Milarepa is saying, well, they're nothing other than the state of uncontrived awareness. In that uncontrived awareness, which is the mind itself, the nature of the mind, within that, all three jewels are ever present. They're complete in that. The so-called three jewels are the ultimate three jewels are this uncontrived awareness. I don't need to make supplications to them because they're just my mind. This yogi who's free of reciting mantras is so happy. We would be too. If we have nothing to do and then we're already Buddha, right? The Yidam deities who bestow the two types of siddhi can't be created. They're perfect within luminosity. So we talked about the other day when we were talking about Vajra, remember, there is the creation or so-called development stage in which the deity arises from emptiness, and then from that emptiness there is a Sisala, from that arises so on and so forth. So that's a creation stage of the deity. Here he says, the deities cannot be created. So what is he talking about? He's saying that because within that luminosity of the mind, the deity is already perfectly there. The deity is nothing other than that luminosity. The other day we already said, the mind's nature is in the practice of a deity, then the deity is nothing other than the manifestation of that luminous mind, that nature of the mind. So the deity is nothing other than the nature of your own mind. So that's what's being pointed out here. And the deity bestows the two types of siddhi, which are the mundane and the supreme cities. In the mundane, such as worldly accomplishments. And the supreme city is the city or the accomplishment. City means accomplishment. The city of Buddhahood. So I don't need to practice the creation stage because it's already perfect within my mind. Of course, you understand, within my mind, there's a duality there, right? Me and my mind. But more correctly spoken, it should be within the mind rather than my mind. Okay, so I'm a yogi. So I don't need to practice the creation stage. I'm a yogi whose body arises as a deity, so happy. So whenever I, Milarepa, think of myself, I think of myself as the deity, right there. So I don't need creation stage. The host of dakinis who clear away obstacles and adverse conditions are perfect in the natural innate state. I don't need to offer any torments to them. I'm a yogi who rests in the six consciousnesses relaxed, so happy. So again, we think of dakinis as external, dakinis, goddesses. Their job is to clear away obstacles and adverse conditions for practitioners. But these are not external. They are already in the natural innate state of my mind. So I don't need to make offerings to these external dakinis. That's why in Milarepa's cave, there's nothing. He makes feast offering maybe with his mind, with his visualization. He does not have anything external to offer, not a piece of food. But we're not there yet, so don't, go home and say, okay, I'll just visualize the Torma offering, visualize the soul. I don't need to buy anything or make anything. So he says, I'm a yogi who rests in the six consciousnesses, relaxed. The consciousnesses, they can be divided into 6, 7, or 8 consciousnesses. But if you can rest in the nature of those consciousnesses, then that's sufficient. You're happy. The demons that cause obstructions are just my own thoughts. We usually think, oh, demons, oh, goodness, where do they come from? Why do they come to harm me? But he's saying, they're just my own thoughts, Appearances of ghosts are perfect in Dharmata. Oh, a step further then. They are not just your own thoughts, but actually appearances of these demons and ghosts, they're perfect. Because they're also, their nature is also the same as your nature. And their nature is also nothing other than the Dhammata, suchness. Sometimes it's translated as suchness. There's nothing that has defect in Dhammata or in the nature of all things. I don't need to do pujas or bang on drums. So he doesn't, and it is true, he doesn't have a drum in his cave because he has realized the nature of all things. And we still need to do it because in order to realize that nature, we need to do all sorts of things, right? All sorts of practices. So we need to be careful not to be confused and think, oh, he says I don't need to do anything, so I'm just going to do nothing. Don't mistake that to be, applicable to our level. I'm a yogi for whom thoughts arise as a Dharmakaya, so happy. So thoughts arise as Dhammakaya, just like you remember I pointed out one particular sentence where he says, suffering arises as what? Bliss, right? Yeah. So it's not just suffering arises bliss. Thoughts arise as Dhammakaya. As soon as a thought arises, recognizing its nature as being unborn, it is already recognized as Dharmakaya, which is the wisdom of all Buddhas. So that takes training, of course. Usually thoughts arise, and we get carried away by these thoughts. But that is only because we lack in training, we lack in practice. If we can train and practice whenever a thought arises, look at its nature immediately, and then that thought is completely, you can say that thought then at the very least would not be able to continue to exist, because it's being kind of quote unquote exposed. Thoughts come and go. We think we know, but we actually don't know. So that's why we blindly follow our thoughts. But if we can recognize the thoughts as they arise, then the thoughts are being exposed and recognized. And so the thoughts cannot continue. And so at least at that very first moment, the thoughts already disappear. And when you look at the nature of that disappearance of that thought, because when the thought is looked at, it cannot exist. When the thought is looked at in its own nature, you might think the thought would continue, and that is because you are not really looking at its nature. You're still allowing the thought to continue. But if you truly are able to look at the thought in its own nature, the thought cannot continue, because the thought is only your mind. How can a mind look at a mind? There's only one mind. So when the mind is doing this act of looking, it cannot truly have a coexisting thought of this previous thought. Do you understand what I mean? So in other words, the looking mind is replacing that previous thought that you're trying to look at. And if you do it really correctly, then that looking mind replaces the thought that is being looked at. So the thought disappears. It cannot possibly exist. So then you just have this looking mind. And then you look at that, the nature of that looking mind, then Dhammakaya is revealed. All the conventional terms of the scriptures are perfect within the experience of luminosity. So, all the monks there are looking at the scriptures, studying and trying to memorize the scriptures. But he's saying all these conventional scriptures are really, what are they talking about? They're already in my experience of luminosity, in the luminous mind already. They're perfectly there already. I don't need to look at the scriptures, because they're already within that luminosity. Because the purpose of studying the scriptures, and chanting all these scriptures, is to realize the nature of the mind. And it's for someone who has already accomplished that purpose, that they don't need to study the scriptures anymore. I don't need to do any study of these. I'm a yogi for whom experiences arise as texts. So happy. Yeah. Thus he sang. Geshe Yagru Tangpa said, "Yogi, your practice is truly amazing, but to be a good representative of the Buddhist teachings, one must first study, then wear the yellow robes and engage in excellent conduct." That is true, for an ordinary approach, that is the approach. Then the Chizen replied, "That is your tradition, so you should do accordingly. But I'm Milarepa, and in my tradition, if I'm not ashamed of my own conduct, then that is sufficient. So that's very nice. Questions about this song or just in general? Yeah.
Can we go back on the previous one?
Yeah.
There's something that I didn't ask you about, but it's kind of bothering me. There were two lines, one back to back. There was one about, okay, on page 15, 3 lines up from the bottom of the page, it says, with the 6 consciousnesses in their own place, I feel good. With the clarity of the 5 gates consciousness, I feel good. So I may be splitting hairs here, but I'm a little confused. 6 consciousness and 5 gates consciousness. The 5 gates consciousness are included in the 6 consciousness.
Yes, correct. Yes.
So then he's just making the distinction of the 6 consciousness between those two?
I think so. Yeah.
Question.
Yeah.
So Gampopa is a student of Milarepa, and I might be misremembering, but I thought Gampopa was a monk.
Yes.
I was just wondering how the lineage works if a monk is studying from somebody who is a lay person.
Yeah, and that is very, Maba himself was a layperson. And of course, Milarepa was a layperson also, but I think Maba also had many monk students. And Milarepa had many, monk students as well, but they're usually not mentioned. The students that were mentioned in these songs are mostly students who came to him, heard his songs, then went immediately to the cave to meditate as yogis. So they were not monks. But Gampopa was quite exceptional in that way. But I think because the Buddhist tradition, needs a monastic establishment in order for it to continue, the yogic tradition is still continuing in Tibet today. But yogis, can't have a gathering. They're all spread out in their individual solitary places. So it's very difficult to continue on in a complete sense all the teachings of the Buddha, because yogic practices are kept secret and they're transmitted usually from one to another, from teacher to student. And if there is a break in that transmission, it cannot go on. So I think this is my understanding. So in order for the Buddhist teachings to flourish and continue, it needs a monastic tradition, so that there's always a body of monks or nuns, for that matter, that can carry on, I think. And yeah, there's no problem for a monastic to seek teachings from a layperson, especially as someone like Milarepa, yeah. In the Sakya, the 4 lineages of Tibetan Buddhism, one of them is Sakya lineage. The Sakya lineage is continued through lay throne holders. The throne holders or the lineage holders of the Sakyas are all lay people. There are actually 3 main branches of the Sakya lineage, and one of the branches is passed down from father to son. So it's a lay lineage. Yeah.
One more question. We listened to the song that was sung for Gampopa's co-disciple, Milarepa's other disciple, and I just wondered if Trungpa had I might be saying it wrong, Trungpa had his own lineage, or because we studied Gampopa's lineage, but that was a separate lineage, that then there was a branch of light.
Rinpoche, I'm not sure if he actually established his own lineage. I think there was, but somehow it's a little bit obscure now, so I'm not too sure. It was not prominent to begin with for some reason, and now we don't really hear about a Rinpoche lineage per se. We hear about some someone, a Rinpoche, who's a emanation of Rinpoche, but that lineage, Rinpoche's lineage, I'm not too sure. Okay. Oh, okay. Online question.
Thank you, Lama Lodro.
Welcome.
So, I guess throughout the last, few sessions, certain things have jumped out at me in terms of actions that are that Milarepa is happy that he is not having anymore, that make him happy. And certain of them jump out at me in terms of things that afflict me, that are, quite prominent sometimes in my behavior, in my actions, sometimes more internalized, I would say, but that I know are, sort of problematic for me. And I'm finding that, I don't know if this is a question or not, but I'm finding that, through these songs, there's certain things, I mean, certainly there's so much to be learned, but there's certain things that I think really can kind of inhibit my going further. And so I just wondered, like through practice, to actually have sort of a targeted practice on those things, or I don't know. I'm not sure what my question is, but they're kind of jumping out at me saying, you need to work on that. Because it's making him so happy. And of course he's realized, and I'm certainly not, but is that a place to start maybe?
Yeah, that's actually a good question, because I think a lot of people probably share that feeling of, I need to work on this. And of course, in the Buddhist teachings, fortunately, we are given many, many techniques, approaches, and methods for dealing with things that challenge us, things that we need to work on, and situations that we need to be more skillful with dealing with, and things like that. And they're all good. There's, no good or bad. There's no higher and lower. They're all very good, such as the practice of patience, the practice of compassion, the practice of sending and receiving. They're all excellent, really. But just as is taught, because the basis or the root of our problems is not recognizing the nature of the mind. So the work or the training or the practice of looking at the nature of the mind alone really is what we can probably call the virtue that encompasses all. It's a single virtue that we need, single sufficient virtue that we need, single sufficient practice that we need. This is kind of a high talk, I have to admit, because it's not easy. The best thing may not be the easiest thing, and the easiest thing may not be the easiest thing to do, because what's the big deal? Just look at the mind, Sounds very easy, but it's not easy to do. So, since we're in the context of Milarepa songs, then I would like to offer you this option of taking care of all the things that you need to work on by the single sufficient practice of looking at our mind, looking at the mind, and looking at the mind's nature, not just looking at what it's doing. That's not helpful, If you just look at what the mind is doing, that increases your self-awareness, but it doesn't take care of the problem. The best way to take care of the problem that arises from the mind is by looking at the mind itself, because it comes from the mind. So you go back to the root, which is the mind. So you look at the mind's nature. That's the best way.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
So is this the same as contemplation?
No. Contemplation uses some sort of mental analysis, or through understanding certain concepts, then you try to kind of negotiate with yourself in your mind, things like that. It's more analytical. Here, no analysis, nothing. Just looking.
Seems like you gotta get rid of a lot of stuff. Just look.
Exactly. I mean, it's the sharpest knife, as they say. Mm. Did we sing the song already? No. Okay, let's go back. This will be page what? Yeah, okay. Ôi đen quên nè chú về gần chú xuống để mà chữ rê về ngang đô dô để đó số âm để gyam mà gơ số ngã thế chư đa cha về nam trôi đế ngơ chu nam ni thế về đam tha tha chu mê sang an đô so thế la ge rin gong ya ma ge so rang du la gu sha we nan jo de tian gen pa che sa we kang zhe zuo rang xin niu mei ngang du zuo de la do ma do ya ma ge so co chu su bai chu be nan chu de nam do ge ge gong ho de de nan chu ni ge ngang do zo de la za dong xie yang ma ge so nam do chi gu sha we nan jo de ta nie se ge long re ge nyam zhong ge sa ge ngang do so de la do nie cha ya ma ge so nam wa be cha sha we nan jo de Okay, very good. I think we'll look at the next one, two songs, last two songs, perhaps this afternoon. There are still quite a few more to go, but we won't be able to finish them all. But I think as you read on, you will be able to understand the meaning much better now that we've gone through the ones, that went before, because the meaning of these songs is pretty much the same, so I think you can grasp the meaning a lot better by yourself. So we'll dedicate the merit.
So this is the last tab. It says closing. And turn 3 pages and come to the dedication of merit. Sonam de tam che sik pani tomnen ye pedranam pam che ne yegana chi balap truk payi si pe sole drowa so.
Thank you. See you this afternoon at 1:30. 1:30? Yes, thank you.